but with emotional intelligence, self-mastery, and psychological boundaries that no one can cross. If you're ready to stop entertaining what weakens you, like this video to support the Stoic revolution we're building. Subscribe so you don't miss the tools that will protect your peace and elevate your power. The truth is simple. Not everyone deserves access to your life. And today, we're going to show you exactly who to cut off and how to walk forward in silence, stronger, sharper, and untouchable. Let's begin. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. You know this person. They don't scream. They don't lash out. But every conversation with them feels like someone slowly dripping acid into your mind. They complain about their job. They complain about their partner. They complain about the weather, the government, society, everything except themselves. And the worst part? They do nothing to change it. When complaining becomes a weapon of emotional sabotage, at first complaining might seem harmless. After all, don't we all vent now and then? But this goes beyond an occasional rant. The complainer doesn't seek solutions. They speak to reinforce a worldview built on bitterness, helplessness, and blame. And if you're not careful, you start seeing life through their lens. Suddenly, your job feels inadequate. Your relationships feel flawed. Your peace once solid starts to crack. This is not an accident. This is emotional contamination, what Stoicism teaches us about chronic complainers. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." Not to be pessimistic, but to be prepared. Because a Stoic doesn't expect perfect people, but they refuse to be corrupted by their imperfections. The complainer lives in direct violation of Stoic values. They refuse personal responsibility. They reject emotional regulation. They cultivate resentment like it's a badge of honor. In Stoic philosophy, chronic complaining is a symptom of a weak, untrained mind, a mind that hasn't learned to separate what can be controlled from what cannot. Why you must distance yourself from complainers, not because they're evil, but because they're infected. And emotional infection spreads silently. They plant doubt in your confidence. They amplify minor annoyances into life problems. They make you feel guilty for having peace when they don't. This is how they drain your mental energy without ever raising their voice. How to handle them? The Stoic way. 1. Set psychological boundaries through strategic silence. You don't have to argue. You don't have to correct them. You simply stop feeding the fire. The next time someone complains for the third time about the same problem, ask, "That sounds frustrating. What are you planning to do about it?" If they stumble or change the subject, you've just exposed the truth. They don't want solutions. They want sympathy. 2. Remind yourself, your energy is sacred. Just because someone is venting doesn't mean you owe them your focus. Your inner peace is a form of wealth, and you have the right to protect it with absolute discipline. 3. Create emotional distance. If you can't cut ties, cut depth. Be kind, be calm, but don't let their chaos into your soul. You're not obligated to be anyone's unpaid therapist, especially when they're addicted to their own misery. Reflection questions to sharpen your awareness. Who in your life leaves you emotionally drained after every conversation? Are you holding space for someone who has no intention of growing? When was the last time your mood shifted because of someone else's negativity? Emotional intelligence is knowing when to listen and when to leave the room. The complainer doesn't want change. They want attention. And if you're not careful, you'll become their next topic of complaint. So remember this: your peace is your power. Protect it relentlessly. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Seneca. Have you ever known someone who always has a reason why they haven't started, why they can't change, or why life is just too hard? They don't lack intelligence. They don't lack opportunity, but they constantly blame their circumstances, their past, or just bad timing. This is the excuse maker, and if you're not careful, they'll slowly infect your mindset with self-doubt, complacency, and a watered-down version of your potential. Excuses are more dangerous than failure. Excuses don't look toxic on the surface. In fact, they often sound rational. I would do it, but now's not the right time. Not everyone's meant to succeed. Some people just get lucky. Discipline. That's just not my personality. Oh, here's the truth. Excuses are just fear wearing a mask. They create a false sense of comfort, so you don't have to confront the discomfort of growth. But that comfort comes at a price. Your ambition, your self-worth, your evolution. The Stoics warned us about this. Seneca taught that time isn't the problem, how we waste it is. And one of the most subtle ways people waste their lives is by becoming experts at justifying inaction. Why excuse makers violate Stoic principles. Stoicism is built on the idea that your power lies in what you can control. Your thoughts, your effort, your discipline, your attitude. The excuse maker surrenders all of that. They hand over their agency to chance, circumstance, or other people, then tell you it's realistic. But Marcus Aurelius made it clear. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. 4. Excuse makers live in denial of this truth. And if you spend too much time with them, you'll start to lower your own standards just to match their comfort zone. Why you must distance yourself from excuse energy. Being around excuse makers is like trying to run a marathon with weights tied to your ankles. You start thinking, maybe I'm pushing myself too hard. Maybe I should lower the bar a bit. Maybe self-discipline is too extreme. And before you know it, you've started to believe that average is acceptable and excellence is obsessive. But here's the Stoic reality. Growth requires friction. Self-mastery demands responsibility. You can't build a high-performance mindset in an environment that rewards excuses and punishes effort. How to handle excuse makers. The Stoic way. 1. Lead with example, not confrontation. Stoics don't argue, they demonstrate. Let your habits, consistency, and discipline do the talking. You don't need to prove them wrong. You just need to keep showing what's possible when you take ownership of your life. 2. Watch your inner dialogue. Excuse makers often embed their mindset into your language. Be mindful of when you say things like, "I'll try," "I'll get to it when I can," "It's not the right moment." Replace them with, "I will," "This matters," "Let's go." This is emotional intelligence in action, choosing language that reinforces action, not avoidance. 3. Build boundaries around your energy. You don't need to cut everyone off, but you do need to protect your time and space from people who normalize self-sabotage. If someone is always justifying their stagnation and it starts bleeding into your focus, pull back. Reflection questions to sharpen your awareness. Who in your life always has a reason not to take action? Have their words ever made you question your own ambition or pace? Are you making decisions based on logic and values, or on someone else's fear? The more you sweat in silence, the less you bleed in regret. Think Stoic. 101. Excuse makers aren't bad people, but they're dangerous to your discipline. They teach you to make peace with mediocrity, to soften your edge, to put off your greatness until life magically becomes perfect. But the Stoics knew better. Life will never be perfect, but your effort can be. Choose effort, choose action. And if you must walk alone to do it, walk with pride. You always own the option of having no opinion. Marcus Aurelius. You probably know this person. They always seem to know everything. Who's dating, who failed, who messed up, who said what. Their conversations are coated in charm, laced with secrets, and steeped in insecurity. On the surface, they seem entertaining, but underneath, they are revealing a deeper truth. Gossip is the currency of the emotionally weak. Gossip isn't harmless, it's contagious. Let's be clear. Gossip is not a casual habit. It's a pattern of thinking rooted in judgment, envy, and comparison. And if you're around it long enough, you will become it. You'll begin questioning people based on hearsay. You'll waste mental energy on rumors instead of results. You'll train your mind to look outward instead of inward. That's the real cost of gossip. It disconnects you from your values and your personal growth. The Stoics warned us of this. They believed that a life of virtue begins with one simple choice. Focus only on what is within your control. Gossip is the opposite of that principle. It thrives on what other people are doing, saying, or failing at, none of which is in your control. Why gossipers are a threat to your self-worth. Here's what no one tells you. People who gossip to you will gossip about you. You're just temporarily useful, and that's the real danger. Gossipers build false intimacy through shared judgment. They bond by tearing others down. And if you engage, even passively, you co-sign their weakness. But more importantly, you weaken your own. Every moment you spend engaging in gossip is a moment you're not building your self-worth. You're not developing your character. You're not practicing discipline over your mind. As Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Gossip keeps you stuck in observation mode, never in action mode. It's easier to talk about someone's mistakes than to fix your own. How gossip hijacks your emotional intelligence. Gossipers are emotional tricksters. They present opinions as facts. They weaponize charm to get your attention, and they subtly shift your focus from self-awareness to self-comparison. But emotional intelligence begins when you recognize this manipulation, and it strengthens when you refuse to play along. You don't need to fight it. You just need to outgrow it. How to handle gossipers the Stoic way. 1. Don't engage. Withdraw with elegance. The most powerful move is silence. If someone starts gossiping, simply respond, "I don't really know them well enough to say." Or even better, "Let's talk about something that actually helps us grow." You don't need to scold them. Just refuse to participate in their mental laziness. 2. Recenter on what you control. You can't stop people from talking, but you can stop your mind from absorbing the noise. Every time you focus on someone else's flaws, you delay your own development. And that's a luxury you can't afford if you want to master yourself. 3. Audit your environment. Ask yourself, who in my life thrives on the downfall of others? Who constantly talks about people, but rarely talks about ideas, growth, or goals? Then act accordingly. You are not obligated to entertain weakness, no matter how charming it seems. Reflection questions for inner clarity. Have you ever found yourself repeating gossip only to later regret it? Are your conversations focused on people's business or your own business? Do you respect yourself enough to walk away from unproductive dialogue? Strong minds discuss ideas. Weak minds discuss people. Socrates. Gossipers don't need your judgment. They need your absence. Because every second you spend feeding their drama is a second you starve your own discipline. And in the Stoic life, you don't have time for distraction. You have a mission. You have a mind to protect. You have inner peace to preserve. So the next time someone whispers gossip in your direction, remember, silence isn't weakness. It's wisdom in motion. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Epictetus. There's a type of person whose silence is louder than words. The one who doesn't clap when you win. The one who doesn't text you back when you share good news. The one who looks you in the eyes and still hopes you fail. That person is the envious. And if you keep them close, they won't just resent your success. They'll quietly sabotage your peace, your confidence, and your ability to own your worth. The danger of envy is not loud, it's subtle. Envy is sneaky. It doesn't always show up as insults or criticism. Sometimes it comes as backhanded compliments, fake smiles, sudden distance after your progress. Questions like, "Don't you think you're doing too much?" The envious don't attack your weaknesses. They target your strengths, because your growth reminds them of everything they've chosen not to pursue. And deep down, it hurts them. Why envy destroys relationships and self-worth. The Stoics saw envy as irrational. Why? Because it focuses on what others have rather than what you can become. Envy takes your attention away from your effort, discipline, and virtue, and places it on someone else's outcomes, achievements, or possessions. Epictetus reminded us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because real growth is about detaching from public validation. It's about focusing on your own inner development, not external comparisons. But the envious don't live by this code. They measure their worth through comparison. And when you rise, they feel small. So, instead of rising with you, they try to bring you down to their level subtly, consistently, and sometimes cruelly. The emotional toll of being around envy. Here's what happens when you keep envious people close for too long. You begin to shrink yourself to make them comfortable. You hesitate before sharing your joy. You downplay your success so you don't seem too much. And slowly, without realizing it, you start to believe that your light is a burden. But that's not humility. That's self-sabotage. And the longer you tolerate envy, the more you abandon the full expression of your potential. You were not born to dim your light. You were born to live in alignment with your purpose. And that includes celebrating your growth without guilt. How to handle the envious. The Stoic way. 1. Practice detachment. Their emotions are not your burden. If someone resents your growth, that's their wound to heal, not yours to fix. You can be kind, you can be graceful, but you are not responsible for managing someone else's insecurity. 2. Protect your peace by protecting your wins. Not everyone deserves access to your victories. It's okay to share less. It's okay to grow in silence until you find a circle that celebrates, not competes. This is emotional intelligence in action, knowing who you can trust with your joy and who turns it into discomfort. 3. Replace envy with admiration, in yourself and in others. When you see someone succeed, let your first instinct be curiosity, not comparison. Ask, what can I learn from their journey? And when you succeed, celebrate without shame. Because a high-performance mindset includes self-respect. Reflection questions for inner alignment. Who in your life goes quiet when you share good news? Have you ever dulled your shine to avoid triggering others? Are you surrounding yourself with people who cheer for you or secretly compete with you? Your success will test more relationships than your failures ever will. Think Stoic 101. Envy is not about you. It's about what someone else refuses to face in themselves. But if you keep excusing their energy, you'll slowly mirror their mindset. You'll begin to believe that confidence is arrogance, that ambition is selfish, that staying small is the price you pay for peace. But Stoicism reminds us, peace doesn't come from shrinking. It comes from standing tall with clarity, virtue, and an iron mind. So the next time someone can't clap for you, walk away. Because real friends don't fear your light. They rise with it. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Seneca. We all know someone like this. The one who snaps at waiters, slams doors when things don't go their way, turns every disagreement into a battlefield, walks into a room and leaves emotional debris behind. They are the hot-tempered people who confuse emotional outbursts with strength. But here's the truth. A person ruled by their anger isn't powerful, they're possessed. And if you stay around them long enough, you risk becoming just like them, reactive, unstable, and ultimately weak. Anger is not a flex. It's a loss of command. In modern culture, we often glorify rage. Movies, music, and even politics portray outbursts as passion or power. But the Stoics saw it differently. Seneca didn't hold back. Anger is a brief madness. Control it, or it will control you. And here's why. Anger makes you easy to manipulate. Anger clouds your judgment. Anger trades long-term wisdom for short-term domination. In other words, anger is the emotion of the undisciplined. Why hot-tempered people violate Stoic values. At the core of Stoicism is the principle of self-mastery, the ability to govern your own mind, no matter what the outside world throws at you. But the hot-tempered live in constant emotional exposure. They are slaves to stimulus. Someone disrespects them, they explode. Something delays them, they erupt. A plan changes, they fall apart. That's not power, that's predictability. And predictability is weakness. Because if the world can provoke you at will, you're not in control, your environment is. How the hot-tempered sabotage you. When you're around angry people long enough, you begin to normalize their behavior. You brace for explosions. You walk on eggshells. You start justifying their outbursts. That's just how they are. But here's the psychological cost. Your emotional safety is compromised. Your own nervous system stays in defense mode. You begin reacting to life, not responding with clarity. Even worse, their anger will slowly train your mind to believe that reaction is power, when in truth, reaction is surrender. How to handle the hot-tempered, the Stoic way. 1. Master yourself before trying to manage them. You don't defeat a fire by throwing gasoline on it. The Stoic doesn't match rage with rage. They disarm chaos with composure. When someone explodes, you don't escalate. You observe. You breathe. You detach. This isn't weakness. It's emotional intelligence under pressure. 2. Withdraw your emotional availability. Anger addicts feed on your reaction. They want to provoke a response so they can justify their own behavior. Take that fuel away. Respond with clarity or not at all. Let them burn out in their own fire. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. 3. Choose peace over proximity. If someone's anger routinely invades your peace, walk away, not out of hatred, but out of principle. You don't need to fix them. You need to protect you. Boundaries aren't punishment. They're protection. And when dealing with the emotionally volatile, boundaries are non-negotiable. Reflection questions to build inner restraint. Who in your life cannot go a day without losing control? Have you ever started reacting more sharply just because they made it feel normal? Do you confuse silence with weakness, or do you understand it as power? He who angers you controls you. Think Stoic 101. Here's what no one tells you. Anger looks powerful until it destroys everything it touches. Careers, relationships, reputations, peace, and people who let their temper run their lives eventually run out of people willing to walk beside them. The Stoics knew that the calmest person in the room is usually the strongest, because they don't waste energy proving power, they conserve it. So, if someone in your circle constantly burns hot, let them rage alone. You weren't made for war. You were made for mastery. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. You walk into the room, and there they are. Tears, cows, accusations. Everything is urgent. Everything is personal. Everything is about them. You listen, you console, you problem solve, but it never ends. You're not in a friendship. You're stuck in a storm that never passes, and it's not your storm. You're dealing with the drama magnet. Drama isn't emotion. It's emotional manipulation. Drama magnets don't just feel things deeply. They create chaos to control connection. They blow up minor issues into life-altering crises, involve multiple people in every conflict, constantly play the victim, then the hero, then the villain, all in one day. Why? Because drama feeds them. It gives them attention, relevance, and a false sense of importance. But for you, it steals your emotional clarity. It depletes your peace. And worst of all, it pulls you out of alignment with your values. What Stoicism teaches about emotional chaos? The Stoics had one core principle: don't react, respond. Drama magnets violate that principle with every breath. They need you to react. That's their fuel. But the Stoic mind doesn't play that game. It doesn't get baited. It doesn't enter battles it didn't choose. Because the moment you react to drama, you've already lost your discipline. And without discipline, your peace is for sale. The psychological cost of living in someone else's chaos. Being close to a drama magnet feels like constant fatigue without understanding why. Overthinking conversations that should have been simple. Feeling guilty for setting boundaries or even needing space. They teach you that calm is cold. Silence is betrayal. Self-focus is selfish. But here's the Stoic truth. Peace isn't selfish. It's sacred. How to handle the drama magnet. The Stoic way. 1. Stop trying to fix them. They don't want solutions. They want attention. You are not their therapist. You are not their savior. You are responsible for your own emotional energy, not theirs. 2. Practice the art of detached silence. Don't defend. Don't explain. Don't absorb. Let them vent, spiral, rage, while you remain the stillness in the center of their storm. Silence is the element in which great things fashion themselves. M. Thomas Carlyle. Very Stoic in spirit. 3. Set psychological boundaries and enforce them. It's not enough to say, I need space. You must mean it. Reinforce it. Live it. cut the cord between their chaos and your identity. You can care about someone without carrying everything for them. Reflection questions for inner freedom. Who turns every moment into an emotional spotlight on themselves? Do you feel drained, guilty, or out of control after engaging with them? Have you mistaken drama for depth and emotional volatility for connection? Emotional maturity is not reacting to chaos, but returning to clarity. Think Stoic 101. The drama magnet doesn't want peace. They want attention. And if you don't protect yourself, you'll confuse exhaustion for love. But the Stoics remind us, peace is not found by avoiding conflict. It's found by refusing to enter unnecessary ones. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their storm, don't. Remain grounded. Remain sovereign. Remain unshaken. If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change, for I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone. Marcus Aurelius. There's a type of person who never shouts. They don't create chaos like the drama magnet. They don't lash out like the hot-tempered. They're calm, polite, reasonable, and absolutely corrosive. They are the naysayer, the person who cloaks doubt in logic and wraps fear in good advice. They don't attack your dreams head-on. They whisper, "Are you sure that's realistic? What if it doesn't work out? That's a bit risky, don't you think?" It sounds helpful, but it's not. It's poison in the form of concern, the subtle power of negative influence. The naysayer doesn't need to raise their voice. Their words echo in your head long after they leave. Why? Because they don't question your ideas. They make you question yourself. You start to second-guess your vision. You dial down your ambition. You begin to trade courage for caution, not because you believe it's right, but because someone else didn't believe in you. That's the power of the naysayer. And it's far more dangerous than open criticism. Why naysayers violate Stoic principles? Stoicism teaches us to filter everything through reason, not fear. But naysayers make fear feel like reason. They confuse pessimism with pragmatism. They label insecurity as intelligence. Epictetus warned us, "It's not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." And naysayers are masters of distorted interpretation. They don't see what could go right. They only spotlight what might go wrong. If you let them close, they'll gradually erode your confidence under the disguise of realism. How naysayers shape a life that isn't yours. Many people never fail, not because they succeed, but because they never start. Why? Because someone said, "That's not possible. Be careful. Who do you think you are?" And that voice, it didn't just speak once. It repeated until it became their inner voice. Now they live with safety, but no satisfaction. Security, but no self-worth. Comfort, but no courage. How to handle the naysayer? The Stoic way. 1. Separate intention from impact. Not all naysayers are malicious. Some truly believe they're protecting you. But that doesn't change the outcome. If their words make you shrink, stall, or stay silent, they're not helping. Be kind, but be clear. I value your concern, but I trust my vision. 2. Filter. Feedback through logic, not emotion. Before accepting criticism, ask, is this based on data or fear? Is this coming from experience or projection? Do they walk the path they're trying to talk me out of? If the answer is no, dismiss it, quietly, powerfully. 3. Build an inner wall of conviction. The Stoic doesn't need universal approval. They need internal alignment. When your intentions are rooted in virtue, growth, truth, courage, You don't beg for validation. You act. Let your courage speak louder than their caution. Reflection questions for inner clarity. Who in your life always plays devil's advocate, but never advocates for your potential? Have you delayed a dream because someone else couldn't see it? Are you building your life based on your values or their fears? Don't let someone else's limitation become your decision-making compass. Think Stoic 101. Naysayers don't destroy you. They don't have to. They just plant enough fear for you to destroy yourself. But Stoicism gives you the antidote: self-command, inner conviction, a mind led by reason, not reaction. The next time someone tells you, "That's too ambitious," you respond, "Only to someone who stopped dreaming." And then you keep going. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Seneca. We live in a world that worships positivity. Smile more, think happy thoughts. Good vibes only. It sounds uplifting until it becomes a trap, because not every moment is meant to feel good, and not every truth is meant to be sugar-coated. Some storms are meant to be faced, not denied. But the toxic positivist doesn't believe that. They cover every wound with glitter. They call pain low vibration. They treat emotional honesty as weakness, and without realizing it, they blind you with sunshine, the lie behind constant positivity. At first glance, they seem helpful. They're optimistic, cheerful, always upbeat. But when life gets hard, and it will, they respond with phrases like, "Just stay positive. Don't think about it. It could be worse. Everything happens for a reason." Here's what that actually means. I don't want to deal with your reality. I'd rather bypass pain than help you face it. Let's pretend everything's okay even if it's not. This isn't support. It's spiritual avoidance. And Stoicism has no tolerance for denial disguised as encouragement. Why toxic positivity violates Stoic principles? Stoicism isn't about pretending life is good. It's about preparing for when it's not. It teaches us to face suffering with courage, not cover it with cliches. To see reality clearly, even when it's brutal. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, "Ignore hardship." He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And that means we acknowledge the storm, but we don't let it control our inner weather. The toxic positivist does the opposite. They ignore the storm entirely, and they teach you to feel guilty for not smiling through disaster. The damage of forced optimism. When you're around someone who constantly avoids reality, you stop expressing yourself honestly. You bury emotions instead of processing them. You begin to associate sadness with failure, and that is dangerous. Because suffering that is buried doesn't disappear, it festers. It becomes anxiety, resentment, isolation, and eventually emotional detachment. The Stoics knew pain is a teacher if you're willing to listen, but the toxic positivist teaches you to silence the teacher and smile anyway. How to handle the toxic positivist the Stoic way. 1. Replace forced positivity with rational optimism. Stoicism is not about being negative, it's about being prepared. A Stoic asks, "What's within my control? What can I learn? What can I endure?" You don't need blind faith. You need clear vision paired with grounded action. 2. Create space for emotional honesty. You're allowed to say, "This hurts. This is hard. I don't have it figured out." That's not weakness, that's emotional intelligence. And any relationship that doesn't allow that is not safe for your growth. 3. Stop mistaking denial for wisdom. If someone constantly tells you to avoid negative thoughts, ask, Are they actually helping you grow? Or are they keeping you comfortable in delusion? Pain is real. And Stoicism doesn't hide from it. It teaches you to train through it. Reflection questions for mental clarity. Do you feel safe expressing pain, or do you feel like you always have to be okay? Have you ever silenced your struggles to make someone else comfortable? Are you surrounding yourself with people who validate your growth or deny your reality? The Stoic does not deny emotion. He disciplines it through truth. Think Stoic 101. Toxic positivity doesn't heal. It hides. And anything you hide from will one day control you. But when you face life with open eyes, even when it's uncomfortable, you reclaim your power. So next time someone says, "Just think positive," say this instead: "I'll think clearly. I'll act wisely. I'll feel deeply and still rise." That's not low vibration. That's inner power. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus: we've all been hurt, betrayed, rejected, overlooked, undervalued. Pain is part of life, but staying stuck in it is a choice. The victim doesn't just feel pain, they wear it like a uniform. Their wounds become their identity. Their trauma becomes their conversation starter. Their helplessness becomes their comfort zone. And if you keep them too close, they'll invite you to join their world. A world where nothing is ever their fault, and everything is someone else's responsibility. When victimhood becomes a lifestyle, there's a difference between being a victim and living like one. We all experience injustice, but the Stoic refuses to let that define them. The victim, however, replays the same story over and over, blames others, the system, the universe, avoids growth by saying, "This is just how I am now." But that's not identity. That's emotional resignation. And if you absorb it long enough, you start believing, maybe healing isn't possible. Oh, maybe I should lower my expectations. Maybe I'm broken too. That is the infection of victimhood, not physical, philosophical. It attacks your sense of agency and convinces you that suffering is a life sentence. What Stoicism teaches about power and responsibility? Epictetus lost his freedom, his body, and his status, but not his mindset. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." The Stoic does not deny pain, but they refuse to be defined by it. To be Stoic is to say, "Yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt. But now, what will I do with it?" That's not denial. That's self-command. The danger of staying around victim energy. When you stay close to people who live in constant victimhood, here's what happens. You become their therapist instead of a friend. You start absorbing their helpless worldview. You feel guilty for having hope or ambition. And the most dangerous part, you begin to mistake survival for strength. But Stoicism doesn't aim for survival, it aims for transcendence. Because surviving your past is not the goal. Rising from it is. How to handle the victim. The Stoic way. 1. Empathize, but don't enable. You can care without carrying. Support their healing, but don't validate their stagnation. Say, "I hear your pain, but I also see your power. What do you want to do about it?" 2. Draw a line between emotion and identity. It's okay to feel lost, but it's not okay to build your home there. If someone defines themselves only by what hurt them, you must protect your emotional boundary. Their story is not your responsibility to relive. 3. Encourage ownership, not outsourcing. Real healing begins where blame ends. Ask them, what's in your control now? How can you respond differently this time? Who do you want to become? These are Stoic questions. They reopen the door to inner power if the other person is willing to walk through it. Reflection, questions for inner strength. Do you feel like you're constantly managing someone else's pain while ignoring your own? Have you held back your joy because someone in your life always makes it about their struggle? Are you being pulled into someone's victim cycle or inviting them into your healing path? Victimhood is not a personality. It's a phase. You're meant to outgrow it. Think Stoic 101. The victim wants sympathy more than transformation. They seek validation for their story, not elevation from it. But if you stay in their orbit too long, you'll forget that you're allowed to outgrow your past. You'll stop rising because you're too busy rescuing. Stoicism says, you are not defined by what broke you. You are defined by how you rebuild. So don't sink to prove your empathy. Rise, and let that be the invitation. He who is not a slave to another's opinion is truly free. Epictetus. Not all threats are loud. Some come disguised as kindness. Compliments laced with obligation. Support that subtly erodes your confidence. Smiles that cost you your voice. You're not being attacked. You're being manipulated. And that's what makes it dangerous. The manipulator doesn't raise their voice. They raise your self-doubt. They twist your emotions so that you can't tell if you're the problem or they are. Manipulation isn't about power. It's about confusion. The goal of a manipulator isn't domination. It's disorientation. They want you second-guessing your decisions, apologizing for your boundaries, feeling guilty for saying no. Because if you stay confused, you'll stay compliant. And the more emotionally intelligent you are, the more they exploit that. They know you'll listen. They know you'll care. They know you'll hesitate before walking away. That's the trap. And if you don't recognize it, you'll find yourself over-explaining, over-giving, over-apologizing, and undervaluing yourself. What Stoicism teaches about emotional sovereignty? Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But a manipulator doesn't want you to trust your thoughts. They want to insert theirs. They chip away at your confidence until you look to them for clarity. They want control, not by force, but by corrupting your inner compass. The Stoic refuses this, because in Stoicism, true freedom isn't about external liberty, it's about mental clarity. The ability to think for yourself, feel without distortion, and act in alignment with your values, not someone else's agenda. Signs: you're dealing with a manipulator. You feel guilty for setting boundaries. You find yourself justifying decisions that shouldn't need explaining. They reward you when you comply and withdraw when you don't. Your self-worth slowly erodes, and you don't know why. This is not connection. It's emotional colonization. And if you don't guard your mind, someone else will occupy it. How to handle the manipulator the Stoic way. 1. Reclaim your internal authority. You don't owe explanations for what protects your peace. If someone makes you feel bad for honoring your boundaries, that's not love. That's leverage. A Stoic knows. My peace is mine, to preserve, not yours to negotiate. 2. Observe their patterns, not their words. Manipulators are skilled with language. They say the right things but repeat the same behaviors. So don't listen to their promises. Watch their patterns, then decide with clarity if their presence aligns with your principles. 3. Enforce boundaries without emotional leakage. You don't need to get angry. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to act. Walk away. Limit access. Speak clearly, and then let your absence reinforce what your words already said. This is strategic detachment. the Stoics' ultimate form of emotional protection. Reflection questions for mental and emotional integrity. Do you feel emotionally lighter or heavier after interacting with them? Are you doing things out of alignment just to keep the peace? Have you started shrinking your voice to preserve their comfort? A manipulator doesn't take your power. They convince you to give it away. Think Stoic 101. The manipulator doesn't need force. They just need access. But you have a choice. The Stoic way isn't to fight for control. It's to remove the need for their approval altogether. Because once you master your own emotions, once you take full ownership of your mind, you become unmanipulable. And that, my friend, is true inner power. We've come a long way from complainers to manipulators, but there's one more silent threat left. Not the person who manipulates you, but the one who wears you down through indulgence, distraction, and lack of discipline. If you seek tranquility, do less, or do what's essential, and do it with reason. Marcus Aurelius. They're fun. They laugh loudly. They say things like, "Come on, don't be so serious. Life's too short, treat yourself. You can't be disciplined all the time." They don't yell. They don't insult. But their influence? It's quietly corrosive. This is the overindulgent, the person who makes mediocrity feel like a lifestyle and weakness sound like freedom. The lie of indulgent living. They promote pleasure over purpose, escape over endurance, instant gratification over inner growth. But they don't call it weakness. They call it living in the moment. They call it being free. They call it self-love. But here's what they really mean. I'm avoiding discomfort. I fear discipline. I don't want to confront the version of me that could be better. And if you don't recognize the subtle erosion, you'll begin to call your own compromises balance. What Stoicism teaches about self-indulgence? The Stoics weren't anti-pleasure, but they knew that pleasure without principle leads to slavery. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." But you cannot be free if you are a slave to your passions. Overindulgence isn't freedom. It's dependence with better branding. When you surround yourself with people who normalize laziness, binging, irresponsibility, emotional numbing disguised as self-care, you start to build a lifestyle that feels good, but rots you from the inside. The cost of tolerating the overindulgent: you delay your goals because there's always tomorrow. You abandon discomfort, and with it, growth. You stop demanding excellence from yourself, because no one around you does. Soon, mediocrity becomes culture, and you no longer rise because there's no one reminding you that you can. The overindulgent rarely destroy your life. They just slowly sabotage your standards, and that's enough to keep you from becoming who you were meant to be. How to handle the overindulgent, the Stoic way. 1. Don't argue out, discipline them. You don't need to convince anyone to change. You just need to become the counterexample. Let your routine, clarity, and focus speak louder than their indulgent noise. 2. Reframe discipline as liberation. To the undisciplined, structure looks like a prison. To the Stoic, it's the path to freedom. Discipline isn't punishment. It's the ultimate expression of self-respect. 3. Protect your inner environment. If you're constantly around people who ridicule structure, belittle growth, and avoid challenge, change the room. You don't need to become a monk, but you do need to guard your momentum like your life depends on it, because it does. Reflection questions for personal power. Have you ever excused self-sabotage by calling it self-love? Who in your life encourages comfort over commitment? Are you living with intention or just reacting to pleasure? True freedom isn't doing whatever you feel like. It's having the strength to do what serves your highest self. Think Stoic 101. The overindulgent mean no harm, but they normalize the very habits that keep you average. And in a world where ease is worshipped, discipline is rebellion. Zorebe. Live with restraint, speak with purpose, and build a life that makes indulgence look like a cheap substitute for what you really came here to do. Associate with those who help